First Contact Protocol. Admiral Elena Santos stood at the observation deck of the International Space Defense Station, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing an impossibly large object decelerating at the edge of the solar system. After 20 years of preparing for this moment, first contact wasn't anything like the protocols predicted. "They're not responding to any of our greeting frequencies," Lieutenant Chen reported, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface. "The vessel's energy signature is, well, it's off the charts, Admiral." Elena nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite the growing knot in her stomach. The alien ship was roughly the size of Manhattan, its surface rippling with what looked like liquid metal. Various appendages extended and retracted from its hull in patterns that defied conventional physics. "What's their current trajectory?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The massive ship had been making a beeline for Earth since it dropped out of what their sensors could only describe as a localized space-time distortion. "They'll reach lunar orbit in approximately 6 hours at their current speed," Chen answered. "And Admiral, they're scanning us. The energy readings suggest they're using technology we can't even begin to comprehend." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "That's what they think, Lieutenant." She pressed her palm against the neural interface panel, connecting directly to the station's quantum network. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Authorization Santos 77 Delta." Throughout the solar system, thousands of seemingly dormant satellites and debris clusters suddenly activated. Humanity had spent the last 2 decades preparing for this moment, hiding their true capabilities behind a carefully constructed facade of primitive technology. "Ma'am," Chen's voice carried a note of concern. "They've launched what appear to be probe vehicles, hundreds of them, heading toward all major population centers." "Let them come," Elena replied calmly. "Alert all ground stations to maintain the charade. Not a single piece of advanced tech goes online until my signal." The alien probes streaked through Earth's atmosphere, their passage barely visible to the naked eye. They positioned themselves above major cities, military installations, and key infrastructure points. To any conventional scan, Earth would appear to be a relatively primitive civilization, barely managing to maintain a few crude space stations and satellites. Elena's neural link buzzed with incoming data as the probes began their survey. Through the quantum network, she could feel the collective anticipation of every defense station operator in the system. Years of training, preparation, and patience had led to this moment. The first sign that something was wrong came when one of the probes attempted to penetrate the atmospheric shield above New Delhi, a shield that, according to all outward appearances, shouldn't exist. The probe's energy signature fluctuated wildly before it simply ceased to exist. "They're powering up weapons," Chen reported, his voice steady despite the situation. "Multiple targeting systems active." Admiral, they're targeting civilian populations." Elena's expression hardened. "So that's how they want to play it. Very well." She straightened her uniform and opened a direct channel to the alien vessel. "This is Admiral Elena Santos of the Earth Defense Force. Your hostile actions have been noted. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapon systems and recall your remaining probes. This is your only warning." The response came in the form of a massive energy surge from the alien ship. Their weapons were charging, preparing to deliver what they likely thought would be a devastating first strike against a helpless primitive world. "They're not going to back down," Chen observed quietly. "No," Elena agreed. "They're not." She took a deep breath. "Initiate Defense Pattern Artemis. Authorization Full Spectrum." Throughout the solar system, humanity's true technological capabilities revealed themselves. The debris field around Earth shimmered as thousands of advanced weapon platforms shed their camouflage. The moon's surface rippled as hidden bases activated, revealing arrays of quantum artillery platforms. Even the asteroid belt came alive with concealed defense stations and automated response systems. The alien ship froze in space, its weapons still charged but not firing. Elena could almost imagine their confusion as they realized their scans had been wrong. Catastrophically wrong. They're attempting to bring additional ships through their space-time distortion, Chen reported, reading multiple signatures forming. Elena nodded, closed the door. At her command, dozens of quantum inhibitor satellites activated, their combined effect sealing off the local space-time manifold. The partially formed signatures of the alien reinforcements wavered and dissipated. Channel still open to their ship? Elena asked. Yes, Admiral. Good. She squared her shoulders. This is Admiral Santos again. As you can now see, your initial assessment of our capabilities was somewhat incomplete. I'm going to make this very simple. Power down your weapons, recall your probes, and let's discuss this like civilized beings. Otherwise, I'll be forced to demonstrate exactly why humanity has survived every extinction-level event thrown at us for the past million years. The tension on the command deck was palpable as they waited for a response. After what seemed like an eternity, the alien vessel's weapon signatures began to fade. They're powering down, Admiral, Chen confirmed. Probes are returning to their ship. They're requesting diplomatic contact. Elena allowed herself to relax slightly. Now that's better. Lieutenant, prepare the first contact suite. Let's show our guests how humanity handles peaceful dialogue. As the situation de-escalated, Elena couldn't help but reflect on how close they'd come to conflict. Humanity had learned long ago that the best defense wasn't just superior technology. It was making potential adversaries underestimate you until it was too late for them to make a different choice. The massive alien ship now hung motionless in space, its liquid metal surface reflecting the light of Earth's sun. First contact had nearly turned into first combat, but humanity's preparation and restraint had prevented what could have been a catastrophic confrontation. Admiral, Chen's voice interrupted her thoughts. The alien vessel is transmitting a new message, text only. Elena glanced at the translation display and allowed herself a small smile. The message was simple but spoke volumes. We acknowledge our error. Humanity is not what we expected. We request a chance to start again. Send them coordinates for the Lunar Diplomatic Center, Elena ordered. Let's show them exactly what humanity is capable of when we're not pretending to be primitive. The first round had gone to humanity, but Elena knew this was just the beginning. As she prepared for the upcoming diplomatic meeting, she couldn't help but wonder what other surprises their new alien visitors might bring, and how humanity's carefully laid plans would adapt to meet them. The human factor. High Ambassador Zixtal stood before the massive observation window of the Lunar Diplomatic Center, their crystalline form refracting the Earth's light into subtle patterns across the polished floor. The view of humanity's homeworld was breathtaking, but it wasn't the planet that held their attention. It was the holographic display showing the extensive network of quantum defense systems their ship had completely missed during their initial approach. Remarkable, they whispered in their native tongue, the translator converting it to perfect English. All this time, we thought we were being cautious by sending our most advanced warship. Instead, we nearly started a war we couldn't have won. Admiral Santos approached quietly, her dress uniform immaculate. That wasn't our intention, Ambassador. We simply believe in being prepared. Prepared. Zixtal's crystalline structure flickered with what humans had learned was amusement. Admiral, your species has turned deception into an art form. Our initial scans showed a civilization barely capable of reaching its own moon. Instead, we find quantum technology that rivals or exceeds our own, hidden in plain sight. Elena smiled diplomatically. We learned early in our development that appearing harmless is often the best defense. It's a lesson from our own evolutionary history. Some of Earth's deadliest creatures are also its most unassuming. The conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Chen's urgent entrance. Admiral, Ambassador, we have a situation. 3 more Nexus ships have just appeared at the edge of the system. They're using a different form of space-time manipulation that our inhibitors can't block. Elena's expression remained calm. But her mind was racing. Have they made any hostile moves? No, ma'am. They're holding position and broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding we release Ambassador Zixtal's ship and surrender our defense systems for inspection. Zixtal's crystalline form darkened. The High Council. They must have detected our ship's weapon systems powering down. They'll assume we're under duress. Elena turned to the ambassador. Can you communicate with them? Explain the situation. They wouldn't believe me, Zixtal replied. In our history, any species capable of forcing our compliance has always done so. They'll assume I'm being coerced. Elena nodded, processing this information. Then we'll have to show them the truth in a way they can't ignore. Lieutenant, activate the Quantum Observatory. Let's give our new visitors a proper demonstration of human hospitality. Throughout the solar system, massive arrays of quantum sensors aligned, creating a real-time, three-dimensional map of space-time itself. The technology was far beyond anything the Nexus civilization had developed, and Elena watched as the alien ship's energy signatures fluctuated in response to being scanned at such a fundamental level. Remarkable, Zixtal observed. You can actually see the fabric of space-time itself. More than that, Elena replied. We can manipulate it. Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Helios. The space around the three Nexus ships suddenly crystallized, forming a perfect sphere of altered space-time. They weren't trapped. They could still move and communicate, but they were effectively contained within a bubble of human-controlled space. A quarantine field, Elena explained to the astonished ambassador. Completely harmless, but it demonstrates our capabilities without requiring any aggressive action on our part. The Quantum Observatory's displays showed the Nexus ship's weapons powering up, then powering down as they realized their energy weapons couldn't penetrate the altered space-time field. They're transmitting, Chen reported. Multiple frequencies, highly encrypted. Let them through, Elena ordered. All of them. The command center's holographic displays filled with the images of multiple Nexus commanders, their crystalline forms showing various signs of agitation. Elena stepped forward, hands clasped behind her back. Greetings, representatives of the Nexus civilization. I am Admiral Elena Santos of Earth. Your ambassador is here with me, unharmed and free to speak. Zixtal moved into view of the transmission. High Council, you must listen. The humans, they're not what we thought. They've achieved technological advancement along a completely different path than our own. They could have destroyed our ship the moment we arrived, but instead, they chose dialogue. The lead council member's crystalline form pulsed with skepticism. Impossible. Our scans showed exactly what they wanted you to see, Zixtal interrupted. Just as this demonstration shows exactly what they want you to understand now. They're not primitive, and they're not hostile, unless we force them to be. Elena stepped forward again. We're releasing the quarantine field now. Consider it a gesture of good faith. We invite all of you to join us at the Lunar Diplomatic Center. There's much we could learn from each other if we start from a position of mutual respect. The field dissolved, and Elena could see the Nexus commanders conferring among themselves. Finally, the lead council member spoke again. Perhaps we have made incorrect assumptions. We accept your invitation, Admiral Santos. But tell me, why reveal your true capabilities now? Why not maintain the deception? Elena smiled. Because true strength isn't about maintaining an advantage. It's about knowing when to extend a hand in friendship. We've hidden our capabilities for centuries not out of fear, but because we wanted any first contact to be based on genuine intentions, not reactions to our technology. As arrangements were made for the Nexus delegation's arrival, Elena noticed Zixtal studying Earth through the observation window again. Something on your mind, Ambassador? We came here thinking we would find primitives to guide or subjugate, Zixtal replied. Instead, we found teachers. Your species has mastered not just advanced technology, but something far more difficult, the wisdom to know when not to use it. Elena nodded, watching as the Nexus ships began their approach to the lunar facility. That's the real human factor, Ambassador. We've learned that true power isn't in the weapons you display, but in the ones you choose to keep hidden. And the wisdom to know the difference. The first real diplomatic contact between humanity and the Nexus civilization was about to begin, and Alina couldn't help but feel optimistic. They had avoided war not through superior firepower, but through preparation, restraint, and the uniquely human ability to turn potential enemies into allies through understanding and respect. Unconventional warfare. The emergency alert came at 300 Earth Standard Time. Admiral Santos was in the midst of reviewing diplomatic protocols when Lieutenant Chen's holographic form materialized in her office, his expression grim. "Admiral, we've detected multiple quantum ruptures at the edge of the system. It's the Wraith Collective." Alina's blood ran cold. The Nexus delegation had warned them about the Wraith, a species that had evolved beyond physical form, existing as pure energy and consciousness. They viewed organic life as an evolutionary dead end, something to be corrected through forced ascension. "How many ships?" she asked, already connecting to the defense network through her neural interface. "That's just it, ma'am. They're not using ships. They're manifesting directly through subspace. Our quantum sensors detect at least 50 major consciousness clusters, each equivalent to a city-sized processing hub." Alina strode toward the command center, her mind racing. The Wraith were unlike anything they'd prepared for. Traditional defenses would be useless against beings of pure energy. Ambassador Zixtal met her at the command center, their crystalline form pulsing with anxiety. "Admiral, you must evacuate your population centers immediately. The Wraith will target your largest cities first, attempting to convert your entire species at once." "No," Alina replied firmly. "Evacuation is exactly what they'll expect. Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Prometheus." Throughout Earth's major cities, seemingly ordinary power stations suddenly transformed. What appeared to be conventional energy grids revealed themselves as vast networks of consciousness traps, technology humanity had developed after studying ancient ruins found beneath the Pacific Ocean. "Fascinating," Zixtal observed. "You're using your civilian power grid as a weapon." "Not exactly," Alina smiled. "We're using it as bait. The Wraith perceive energy patterns as we perceive physical matter. To them, our power grids must look like elaborate buffets." The first Wraith consciousness cluster descended on New York City, its energy form rippling with anticipation as it encountered what appeared to be an unprotected population center. The moment it attempted to interface with the power grid, the trap was sprung. "Consciousness containment fields active," Chen reported. "The Wraith entity is being redirected through our quantum processors. Admiral, it's trying to break free, but the processing patterns are holding." Alina watched the displays as the trapped Wraith consciousness was channeled through a series of increasingly complex quantum algorithms. "This is humanity's true defense against beings like you," she broadcast on frequencies the other Wraith clusters could detect. "We don't just prepare for physical warfare. We prepare for consciousness warfare." The trapped Wraith's energy pattern fluctuated wildly as it encountered layer after layer of human consciousness architecture. What seemed like primitive energy grids were actually vast quantum consciousness mazes, designed to trap and study any entity that attempted to infiltrate them. "More clusters approaching major cities," Chen announced. They're hesitating, Admiral. The trapped entity must be broadcasting warnings to the others." Alina nodded. "Open a channel to all Wraith clusters. Let's explain their options before they make the same mistake." The holographic display filled with swirling patterns of energy as the Wraith attempted to communicate in their native form. The quantum processors translated their consciousness patterns into understandable language. "You dare trap one of us?" the collective consciousness demanded. "We are beyond physical form, beyond your primitive understanding of existence." "Are you?" Alina challenged. "Because from where I stand, you're energy beings who forgot that consciousness itself follows rules. Rules that can be studied, understood, and yes, contained. The entity we've trapped isn't being harmed, but it is being educated. Would you like to know what it's learning? She gestured, and the quantum processors displayed the trapped wraith's consciousness pattern. It had stopped struggling and was instead engaged in what could only be described as a dialogue with the human consciousness architecture. Impossible, the Wraith Collective recoiled. You've created a consciousness interface that can communicate. We evolved as social creatures, Alina explained. When we discovered consciousness could be quantified and processed, we didn't think about weapons, we thought about communication. The systems you see as traps are actually libraries of human consciousness patterns designed to help us understand other forms of awareness. Ambassador Zixtel's crystalline form shimmered with realization. That's why you let my ship scan your cities. You wanted us to see what you wanted us to see, but you also wanted to study how we perceive reality itself. Elena nodded. Every species that's contacted Earth has taught us something new about consciousness and existence. Even now, your trapped companion is helping us understand how pure energy beings think and perceive reality. In return, it's learning why humanity chose to remain in physical form despite having the technology to ascend. The Wraith Collective's energy patterns shifted, displaying what the quantum processors identified as confusion. You could have ascended, yet you choose to remain limited. There's nothing limited about understanding and appreciating multiple forms of existence, Alina replied. We learned long ago that true evolution isn't about leaving things behind. It's about incorporating new understanding while preserving what makes us unique. The trapped Wraith's consciousness pattern suddenly pulsed with new information. It had completed its journey through the human consciousness architecture, and its message to the collective was clear. These humans were not primitive beings to be forcibly evolved, but masters of consciousness who had chosen their form deliberately. We may have misjudged, the collective acknowledged. You offer understanding rather than resistance, knowledge rather than conflict. Elena smiled. We'll release your companion now. Consider this an invitation to real dialogue, not between advanced beings and primitives, but between different forms of consciousness who might learn from each other. As the trapped Wraith consciousness was freed, its energy pattern had changed subtly. It had entered the human systems, seeking to dominate and transform, but it emerged with something far more valuable: understanding. The Wraith Collective's attack had been thwarted not through violence or superior firepower, but through humanity's unique approach to defense, turning every encounter into an opportunity for mutual growth and understanding. Understanding the enemy. In the depths of the Lunar Diplomatic Center's Quantum Research Lab, Admiral Alina Santos watched as something unprecedented took shape. The Wraith consciousness they had previously trapped, now calling itself Observer, had voluntarily returned to study with humanity. Beside her, Ambassador Zixtel's crystalline form reflected the swirling patterns of energy as Observer communicated with their systems. They're discussing poetry, Elena explained to the assembled group of alien diplomats. Observer has become particularly fascinated with human creative expression. A Nexus scientist's crystalline form flickered with confusion. Poetry. A being of pure energy is studying human emotional patterns expressed through primitive verbal communication. Not studying. Observers translated consciousness patterns ripple through the quantum interface. Experiencing. Humans use arrangements of words to create experiences that transcend their physical limitations. It is beautiful. The lab's holographic displays showed observers' consciousness patterns shifting as it recited lines from Emily Dickinson, its energy form creating visual interpretations of the imagery. The effect was stunning, a merger of pure energy and human artistic expression. This is why we chose to remain in physical form, Elena explained. The limitations you see in human existence aren't constraints. They're the source of our creativity, our art, our music, our literature. They all come from our attempt to transcend those limitations while still embracing what makes us human. The quantum sensors suddenly pulsed with alert signals. Lieutenant Chen's hologram appeared, his expression concerned. "Admiral, we're detecting multiple quantum ruptures, different from both Nexus and Wraith signatures. They're something else entirely." The new arrivals emerged from quantum space like oil spreading across water, dark, fluid, and unsettlingly organic despite their clearly artificial nature. Their ships, if they could be called that, were massive biological mechanical hybrids that defied conventional physics. "The synthesis," Zixtal whispered, their crystalline form dimming. "We thought they were just legends, a species that chose to merge biological and mechanical evolution simultaneously." Observers' energy patterns shifted defensively. "They are not legend. The synthesis attempted to absorb the Wraith collective centuries ago. We barely escaped their integration protocols." Elena activated the defense network, but something was different about these entities. The quantum sensors couldn't get clear readings. The synthesis ships seemed to exist in a state of constant flux between organic and mechanical. "They're broadcasting," Chen reported. His hologram flickered as he processed the incoming data. "It's both a signal and a virus, Admiral. They're attempting to infiltrate our systems and our biology simultaneously." Elena felt it through her neural interface. The synthesis wasn't just attacking their technology. They were attempting to rewrite the fundamental nature of human existence. Throughout Earth's cities, people reported strange dreams and technological glitches as the synthesis attempted to merge human consciousness with their network. But humanity had prepared for this too, in ways their enemies couldn't have imagined. "Initiate Protocol Chimera," Elena commanded. Throughout the solar system, humanity's true nature began to reveal itself. What appeared to be purely technological quantum systems showed their biological components, while seemingly organic structures revealed their technological cores. "You're like us." The synthesis communication carried tones of surprise and confusion. "But our scans showed pure organic life with technological additions." Elena smiled. "That's because you were looking for either slash or never both slash, and humanity never chose between organic and mechanical evolution. We chose integration on our own terms." The lab's displays showed the truth. Human quantum technology wasn't purely artificial. It was a hybrid of organic computing and mechanical systems. Their neural interfaces weren't simple technological additions, but a true merger of human consciousness and quantum processing. Every human on Earth carries quantum organic processors in their cells, Elena explained. "Not to replace our humanity, but to enhance it. We don't fear the merger of organic and mechanical because we've already achieved it in our own way." Observers' energy patterns shifted with understanding. "This is why human consciousness architecture is so complex. You aren't just organic beings using technology. You're something entirely new." The synthesis ships hung motionless in space, their fluid forms rippling with what might have been uncertainty. Their attempts to forcibly integrate humanity had failed because humans had already discovered their own path to synthesis. "Your integration protocols have no effect on us," Elena broadcast to the synthesis fleet. "Not because we resist integration, but because we've already evolved beyond the simple merger of organic and mechanical. We've found a way to advance technologically while preserving our essential humanity." A new signal came from the synthesis ships, different from their initial invasion protocols. It carried not demands for integration, but requests for understanding. The fluid forms of their ships began to shift, taking on more recognizable patterns as they attempted to communicate on human terms. "You offer a third path," the synthesis consciousness acknowledged. "Not pure organic like the Nexus once were, not pure energy like the Wraith, not even the forced integration we represent. You've achieved something unique." Elena glanced at the assembled representatives. Crystalline Nexus, energy form Wraith, and now the fluid form synthesis. Each had represented a different path of evolution. Each had come to Earth expecting to find primitives, and each had discovered instead a species that had transcended the very choices they thought were inevitable. "Perhaps," she suggested, "it's time we all learned from each other, not to change what we are, but to understand what we could become. The lab's quantum displays showed the patterns of 4 different forms of consciousness: human, nexus, wraith, and synthesis. Each distinct, yet each now reaching toward understanding rather than dominance. It was, Alina realized, exactly what humanity had been preparing for all along. Not just survival, but the ability to bridge the gap between different forms of existence. The Sacred Alliance. The Great Hall of the Lunar Diplomatic Center hummed with energy of all kinds. Crystalline Nexus delegates shimmered in their environmental fields. Wraith consciousness patterns swirled through specially designed quantum interfaces, and synthesis representatives shifted between organic and mechanical forms as they moved through the space. At the center of it all stood Admiral Alina Santos, preparing to formalize the most significant treaty in human history. To think, Ambassador Zixtol mused, their crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns. We all came here believing we would find primitives in need of guidance. Instead, we found the one species capable of uniting us all. Alina watched as observer. The wraith consciousness that had first learned to understand humanity created beautiful patterns of energy that translated human poetry into pure consciousness experiences for the assembled delegates. Nearby, a synthesis representative demonstrated their ability to shift between forms while maintaining their essential identity, something they had refined after studying humanity's approach to integration. The treaty is ready, Admiral. Lieutenant Chen reported, his hologram materializing beside her. All species have agreed to the terms. Alina nodded, stepping forward to address the assembled representatives of 4 radically different approaches to existence. The quantum translators ensured every being present would understand not just her words, but the concepts behind them. When humanity first reached for the stars, she began, we discovered something in the ruins beneath our oceans, evidence that Earth had been visited before, multiple times, by different species. Each visitor had left behind warnings about the others, each believing their path of evolution was the only valid one. The hall's displays showed images of the ancient ruins, where crystalline technology, energy patterns, and biomechanical hybrid systems had all been found, each telling part of a larger story. But humanity saw something different in those warnings. Alina continued, we saw not threats, but opportunities. Each evolutionary path, the Nexus's crystalline perfection, the Wraith's energy transcendence, the Synthesis's biomechanical integration, represented a valid approach to advancing beyond initial limitations. The flaw wasn't in any of these paths, but in the belief that only one could be correct. Observers' energy patterns shifted in agreement. Humans did not choose between paths. They learned from all of them. Their consciousness architecture incorporates crystalline processing, energy pattern recognition, and biomechanical integration, yet remains uniquely human. More than that, a synthesis representative added, their form flowing between states. They showed us that adaptation doesn't require abandoning identity. We sought to force integration because we believed it was the only way forward. Humans proved that voluntary evolution while maintaining essential nature was possible. Alina activated the treaty's quantum interface, displaying its core principles in forms all species present could comprehend. This alliance isn't about combining our species or forcing anyone to change. It's about creating a framework for cooperation between fundamentally different forms of existence. The treaty's terms appeared in multiple forms simultaneously: crystalline code for the Nexus, consciousness patterns for the Wraith, bioelectric signals for the Synthesis, and traditional text for humans. Each version was different, yet each contained the same essential truth: the recognition that diversity of existence was not just acceptable, but valuable. The core principle is simple, Alina explained. Each species maintains its own path of evolution, but commits to sharing knowledge and understanding with the others. No forced conversions, no technological subjugation, no mandatory integration. Instead, we create spaces like this one, where different forms of existence can meet, learn, and grow together. The treaty included provisions for exchange programs, shared research initiatives, and the establishment of mixed species communities for those who chose to explore other ways of being. But most importantly, it contained absolute protections for the right of each species to maintain its chosen form of existence. We call it the Sacred Alliance, Elena announced, because it recognizes that each of our approaches to existence is sacred in its own way. Different, yes, but equally valid. Equally worthy of respect and protection. As the treaty was formally ratified, something remarkable happened. The Nexus crystals began resonating with the Wraith energy patterns, creating harmonies that the synthesis representatives could interpret and enhance. Humanity's quantum systems recorded and translated these interactions, creating a new form of communication that preserved each species' unique nature while allowing unprecedented levels of understanding. This is only the beginning, Elena observed to the assembled delegates. Together, we can explore forms of existence we haven't even imagined yet, not by forcing change, but by learning from each other's journeys. Ambassador Zixtel stepped forward, their crystalline form glowing with intensity. The humans have a saying that we've come to appreciate. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Today, we become something greater than our individual species, not by losing ourselves, but by bringing our unique perspectives together. As the formal ceremonies concluded, Elena looked out at the Earth through the hall's massive windows. The planet glowed with its own kind of life. Billions of humans going about their lives, each carrying within them the potential for multiple forms of existence, yet choosing to remain uniquely human. It was this choice, this deliberate embrace of their nature while remaining open to change, that had ultimately protected humanity from those who would have forced them to change. The Sacred Alliance was more than a treaty. It was a recognition that the path forward wasn't through conquest or conversion, but through understanding and respect for the infinite ways consciousness could choose to exist. Humanity had prepared for war, but achieved peace, not through superior firepower or technology, but through their unique ability to understand, adapt, and bring together those who thought themselves incompatible. As the various delegates began to disperse, their forms shifting and shimmering in the Earth's light, Elena knew that they had achieved something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. They had created a future where different forms of existence could thrive together, each sacred in its own way, each protected by the understanding that diversity of being was not a weakness to be corrected, but a strength to be celebrated.